on a cause of any kind. And I'll be grateful if you can ever tell me how the man was dragged out of bed when the cat bit him, and who used the knife the second time. For Master Silvio could never have done it by himself. But there! I keep thinking of it still. I must look out and keep a check on myself, or I shall think of it when I have to keep my mind on other things." When Margaret returned from her walk, I met her in the hall. She was still pale and sad; somehow I had expected to see her radiant after her walk. The moment she saw me her eyes brightened, and she looked at me keenly. "You have some good news for me?" she said. "Is Father better?" "He is. Why did you think so?" "I saw it in your face. I must go to him at once." She was hurrying away when I stopped her. "He said he would send for you the moment he was dressed." "He said he would send for me?" she repeated in amazement. "Then he is awake again, and conscious? I had no idea he was so well as that. Oh, Malcolm!" She sat down in the nearest chair and began to cry. I felt overcome myself. The sight of her joy and emotion, the mention of my own name in such a way and at such a time, the rush of glorious possibilities all coming together, quite unmanned me. She saw my emotion and seemed to understand. She put out her hand. I held it hard and kissed it. Such moments as these, the opportunities of lovers, are gifts of the gods. Up to this instant, though I knew I loved her, and though I believed she returned my affection, I had had only hope. Now, however, the self-surrender manifest in her willingness to let me squeeze her hand, the ardor of her pressure in return, and the glorious flush of love in her beautiful, deep dark eyes as she lifted them to mine, were all the eloquences which the most impatient or exacting lover could expect or demand. No word was spoken; none was needed. Even had I not been pledged to verbal silence, words would have been poor and dull to express what we felt. Hand in hand, like two little children, we went up the staircase and waited on the landing till the summons from Mr. Trelawny should come. I whispered in her ear—it was nicer than speaking aloud and at a greater distance—how her father had awakened, and what he had said, and all that had passed between us, except when she herself had been the subject of conversation. Presently a bell rang from the room. Margaret slipped from me, and looked back with warning finger on lip. She went over to her father's door and knocked softly. "Come in," said the strong voice. "It is I, Father." The voice was tremulous with love and hope. There was a quick step inside the room. The door was hurriedly thrown open, and in an instant Margaret, who had sprung forward, was clasped in her father's arms. There was little speech, only a few broken phrases. "Father! Dear, dear Father!" "My child! Margaret! My dear, dear child!" "Oh, Father, Father, at last! At last!" Here the father and daughter went into the room together, and the door closed. Chapter 13. Recording by Roger Moline.